everyone, my name is Diana and this is my persuasive speech. So I want to go ahead and kick this off by asking you all a question, and that is, how would you feel if you were blamed for a crime that you never actually committed? And better yet, how would you feel if you were injected, electrocuted, or hung for a crime that you never actually committed? Dictionary.com goes ahead and describes the death penalty as punishment by death for a crime. And the death penalty is an extremely controversial subject, and you can either take two routes. You can be pro death penalty or you can be against death penalty. And based on the question that I went ahead and asked you guys in the beginning of the speech, I'm sure you are all able to go ahead and already assume that I am against the death penalty. So in this speech, I'm actually going to go ahead and give you guys all the reasonings why I believe the death penalty is wrong, and why some arguments going towards pro death penalty are wrong, and why it should be abolished altogether. So first and foremost, I want to go ahead and start off my speech by saying that humans are not capable of making such a huge decision as to whether somebody's going to if somebody's going to die for committing a crime. And the only way I can really back this up is by simply saying that we are all human. And what that means is that because we are all human, we are prone to making mistakes. Mistakes happen all the time. We are humans, therefore mistakes are going to happen because we are not perfect people. And it doesn't matter how crazy smart, how intelligent, how technologically advanced we are, which we are, mistakes still do happen, and these factors cannot prevent it from happening. Even something such as a confession or a blood test cannot go ahead and 100% prove if somebody is guilty or if somebody is truly a criminal. You cannot go ahead and decide that. Not even something like a blood test can go ahead and decide if somebody is guilty or not. And statistics do show that since 1973, 150 people were released from the row with proof of their innocence. So not even a potential small mistake is worth potentially taking somebody's life if they were innocent. Now that I discussed why I believe that humans make mistakes, I also want to go ahead and talk about the fact that humans arguably can oftentimes make really unwise and not smart decisions. And what I mean by this is judges in particular, and I truly do believe that our court system is not the greatest, and I believe that oftentimes judges make really, really horrible decisions. And to back this up, I want to go ahead and talk about the Stanford swimmer incident that happened just last year in January. This is about Brock Turner, who is a prior Stanford swimmer and who was also a rapist. He raped a woman and left her unconscious behind a dumpster. So the Californian judge went ahead and made a decision to have him be in jail for only 6 months because he believed that the swimmer was not, that the jail time would have a really bad effect on the swimmer, and that he's not going to be a future threat to other people. And prior to making this decision, he also had a chance to go ahead and read 2 letters, one from the victim herself and one from Turner's father. And the victim wrote a really heartwarming and really compelling letter describing how the situation went ahead and emotionally and physically hurt her, and how she is going to feel from now on, and how much of a terrible effect the situation had on her. He also had a chance to go ahead and read a letter from Turner's father, who basically said that 20 minutes of action should not result with his son having to spend years and years in jail. Anybody will be able to go ahead and tell you that this kind of a case is worth far more than 6 months of jail time. In fact, it should be at least 6 years minimum. If a judge can't go ahead and make a rational decision about a situation like this, they should not be able to go ahead and make decisions on whether somebody's going to die or not for a punishment. This also leads me to my next point, and that is that oftentimes judges will go ahead and use other factors to contribute to their decision. And to go ahead and back this up, I want to go ahead and show you guys a couple of photos so you can see what I mean by this. Here they are. Here's this one. So my question is, do you guys see any similarities between these photos? And I'm sure you guys all can go ahead and tell that all of these criminals are African American. And unfortunately, there is a huge correlation between race and the death penalty. And also, it is quite unfortunate that things such as race, stereotyping, prejudice racism, they all still exist. And unfortunately, there is a huge correlation between the death penalty and race, and statistics will go ahead and back me up. African Americans are 3 times more likely to be considered the death penalty than whites. There's also a statistic saying that looking back at previous situations, there is 75% of victims were white in situations where an execution took place, whereas nationally only 50% of victims are white. So this shows that race has been taken into consideration when the death penalty comes to play, and that should not be a thing. Your skin color should not go ahead and decide if you have a higher chance of having the death penalty be considered. That just doesn't make sense. So far in my speech, I was able to go ahead and talk about 3 really important reasons as to why I believe the death penalty is wrong, and 3 arguments why other people have also been able to be convinced why the death penalty is wrong. And I also want to go ahead and mention the fear factor, which is a huge reasoning why many people will go ahead and take the pro-death penalty side. Many people believe that if the death penalty was taken into more consideration, many crime would not be so prevalent because people would be afraid of the death penalty, and they will keep it in mind as they are committing a crime. Personally, I don't think that makes very much sense at all. If somebody's committing a crime, I honestly believe that the death penalty is the last thing that is on their mind. If somebody's about to commit a crime and they're seconds away from murdering somebody, I think the last thing on their head is the death penalty. All they have going on is rage and hate through their minds. And oftentimes, if somebody's committing a crime, they don't even believe that they're going to get caught. And oftentimes they don't, which is why we have so many unsolved cases and so many detectives trying to go ahead and solve a lot of these cases that haven't been able to solve, because oftentimes we aren't able to catch somebody committing a crime. I also watched this really interesting YouTube video that went ahead and talked about the last words that people on the row have said. And a lot of these words were things such as, let's do it, or let's get this over with, or it's a good day to die. These are all things that people have said before they went ahead and were either hung or electrocuted or whatnot. This just comes to show that these people don't fear the death penalty. And honestly, that makes sense to me. Personally, I feel that spending your entire life in jail is a lot more fearful than the death penalty itself. The death penalty is just an easy way out. When you're dying, that is honestly a lot better than spending your entire life locked up, because when you're locked up, when you're on life sentence, you aren't really living, you are just alive. And personally, that is a lot scarier than going ahead and just dying. Dying is truly just an easy way out. So maybe all of my general thoughts aren't enough to go ahead and convince you why the death penalty is wrong, but I believe that anybody with morals should be able to go ahead and see how it's wrong. The death penalty is wrong because nobody should be able to go ahead and make such a decision. If you're trying to teach somebody that killing somebody is wrong by killing them, it just doesn't make any sense. So in this speech, I was able to go ahead and tell you why the death penalty is wrong and why it should be abolished altogether. So the next time somebody asks you about the death penalty, you should really go ahead and keep everything I said in mind and really side with life sentence. We should go ahead and put more of our economy's money into more important things, such as education, health, rather than trials and appeals. So thank you for taking the time to go ahead and listen to my speech, and I believe that we should go ahead and be constitutional and side with our amendments rather than taking somebody's life and really put our economy's money into good use.